Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the United States Chess Championship. We've made it nearly to the end. It is round 12 of 13, the penultimate round. People are trying to secure their position for first place as the tournament ends, and people are trying to leapfrog one another in the twilight of the event. As always, we have very exciting games, 6 of them, which you will enjoy. But we also have a little drama that happened today, which of course features Hans. Like, he just cannot escape it anymore at this point. Although the one today was not exactly his fault. I have a clip for you we will watch at the end during his game. And it's going to be a great time, okay? We have a lot of really tight races. So make sure to tune in, to stick around, and I will also update you on the standings. So the first game that I have for you is between the leaders of the women's section. You really can't draw this up any better. It's round 12 of 13. Jennifer Yu is winning the section by half a point. Irina Krush is playing with black, and she needs to win. She's probably not playing this for a draw. And what better way to try to play for a win than to play into a 4-pawns attack king's Indian defense? This is a very sharp line. And here, after the move e6, rather than playing the main line, which is bishop to e2, or bishop to d3, Jennifer takes on e6. Now, this is actually in my repertoire. And then here, after bishop takes, white likes to play here and then try to attack with f5, which is why the better move is actually to take with a pawn. And, well, Irina knows this. And actually, as early as move 11, Jennifer already kind of plays in a very strange way. White has a couple of options here, like playing e5, playing queen d3, playing h3, and then putting the bishop here so there's nothing here. Playing king h1 with the same idea to kind of reroute the bishop back to the g1 square if the knight were to arrive on g4. I just can't draw arrows. What is wrong with me? Oh my! I just drew like 4 incorrect arrows in a row. Okay, maybe like 2 or 3. It doesn't matter. It's the morning sleepiness, I guess. But this move is not it. Knight e1 is trying to do this slightly differently, and I guess white is trying to play this without allowing knight g4 at all. But it's already kind of a step in the wrong direction, and Irina just shoves the knight into d4 and already has the advantage by move 12. So not the best preparation by white, who maybe wasn't prepared for the move f takes e6. I'm not exactly sure. But now white has to sort of spend the opening getting rid of this knight. And if you're wondering why white cannot go here, here, and here, I would really advise you not to walk into fianchettoed bishops. Knight takes e4 is now possible, and you cannot take this with the queen, and you are hit here, so this is very bad. Of course, if the light square bishop of black was not there, the queen would take the knight, but that's not the case. So the rest of this game is now spent by Jennifer trying to get rid of this knight, right? Like, literally the rest of the game. I mean, that knight just stands in the middle, and black is like, I'm ready for you anywhere you want. Like you want to go in the center? All right, well, I'm there. All right, this allows knight d5, but she just takes it. She takes this, and she takes this. And we have a sequence of moves here of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 trades. You ready for this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All the dust settles, okay? And Irina's like, okay, I like my position here because I'm going to get my bishop to d4 or take on b2. And I own the dark squares. All right, she is the queen of the dark squares in this position. The black knight is going to arrive on e5. This bishop really can't touch anybody. Just absolute non-factor of a piece. That's exactly what happens. And here, rather than, trying to save the pawn and lose the rook, Jennifer decides I'm going to lose this pawn, and then I'm just going to go crazy, h4, which is actually the right thing to do. I mean, you can't just sit there and be worse. You got to do something with your position. So then she consolidates her king, puts her rook on the f-file, and, suddenly this is starting to look better. Remember when I said that bishop was a non-factor? Well, Jennifer Yu is turning it into a factor. Queen d7, and suddenly, here, Irina didn't have to do that. She could have just traded the rooks and probably made a draw. She decides to keep pieces on the board. Suddenly, Jennifer Yu is better. Finally. It took her 30 moves of suffering, but if Jennifer Yu plays the move h5 in this position, all her past sins have been forgiven, because the queen controls the entire f-file with the rook, so you cannot play rook f8 anymore. I'm threatening to get in. What does black do here exactly? If you take on h5, I go here, and I'm just looking for mate. Rook h1, just bishop f5, bishop to e6. If you don't take on h5, and you play g5, well, then I still get access to the light squares, but I'm also going to pin you down now. Now your king really can't move anywhere. And then this might be next. So it's Jennifer's time to shine, right? She did 30 moves. She got here. She plays bishop a4. And Irina takes the bishop. I don't know what happened here. I guess nerves, low time. Maybe she thought there was a deflection. Like maybe she was like, well, but it's defended. Maybe she thought the attack was decisive, but that doesn't make any sense because your king is wide open. So just a total moment of madness there from Jennifer, who just loses the game. Her king just gets hunted immediately. I mean, it's just crazy. Yeah, I guess it was, I don't know, it must have been the nerves of the situation. Just a shocking turn of events. And she loses. I mean, she fought for 30 moves. She got a better position with h5. Bishop a4, crazy. These things happen, I guess. The other game that I have for you is the game between Begim Tokarjonova and Talia Cervantes. Talia has not made a noise in this event until the last few rounds. This game started as like a Grunfeld-esque game by Black. So Black plays this like a Grunfeld, not like a King's Indian. A5, I think this has all been played before. Like, this is going to look really goofy, all of this. Like, White playing like this, trying to shut down the move e5. Black sort of just random. This A-pawn just sort of feels like, you know, you got an army of soldiers, and like one of them is like a little dumber than the rest. You just sort of send him out. You're like, yo, man, why won't you go like try to like mess with the other pieces, you know? And Black's like, all right, I'll do it. You know what I mean? So knight f3 back. And, you know, White just gets a pretty nice position from the early opening. But like anything, you know, Black is not worse because Black played a very reputable opening. And there you go. Now Black's kind of instigating. But now White plays b3 and stability sort of has been restored. Now Talia continues to poke and gets in here with the bishop. I think here the computer, after b3, knight b4, wanted White to play more aggressively with like knight e5, queen b5. White was a bit too respectful of Black's play here. And allowed Black to get some good counterplay, and then Black jumped in here with the knight, and as you can see, suddenly there's tactics all over the board, all right? Very nice find here from Talia, who's just rooks her queen, right? Just straight down the board, and I always like to say when the dust settles, right? Well, when the dust settles, Black is just a pawn up. So White unable to deal with the incoming assault, and here, queen e6 is a very nice defensive move, because if you take this, I got this, and this rook is still hanging in the corner, by the way. I'm telling you, it's total madness of a position. And now both of Black's rooks are hanging, and White's rook on a1 is hanging. Rook b8 takes, and now takes, and takes. Black is no longer up a pawn, but Black is completely winning. Why is Black completely winning? Because rook d2. Dust settles, king is wide open, but also this pawn makes it impossible to deal with the queen side. Like, one of these pawns is going to fall. This pawn's going to get through. And so Talia uses a combination of White's weak king with White's absolutely obliterated queen side, totally paralyzed queen side. And you can trade as many pieces as you want. But look at this. Ultimately, it's going to come down to this king stuck in the corner. Black wins the queen. And Black's about to go down and win some more pawns over there. And, well, Black keeps firing, breaking apart White's defenses, and it takes 50 moves to land the check that's going to win the pawn on a2 with the pawn promoting, and Talia wins. Talia has now won 5 games in a row. Anytime you win 5 games in a row in a chess tournament, you are probably going to be near the top. And after 12 rounds of action, Irina Krush now takes the lead because she beat Jennifer Yu, but Talia Cervantes is in second place. She is half a point away. It all comes down to the final round. If somehow, if Irina Krush wins the last round, she is the U.S. Women's Champion. If she draws, she might be on tie breaks, but I don't know. If Jennifer Yu or Talia win, we might have to have a playoff. So those are your standings. Yeah, I mean, very, very exciting stuff. Now, let's go to the open side. We had 4 decisive games in this round. The first one was the game between Lenderman and Wesley So, which began with a Catalan. Can't hate on that. DC. C5, a very forcing line. Wesley plays bishop d7, kind of a passive variation, but white is obviously doing Catalan things, which is, being very annoying. The knight in the center, threatening stuff. Both these pawns kind of under fire. And it's really up to white to sort of prove this kind of position. And Lenderman gave up a pawn early. Like, he didn't take the pawn back on d4. Now, black has the option to just hang on to this pawn for dear life and accept a potentially, worse or passive position, or give the pawn back. As you're about to watch in this game, Wesley has absolutely no intention of giving the pawn back. So much so that he moves his king out of check. He doesn't even castle. Doesn't castle. Now, Lenderman plays e3. E3 is a very good move, because if you play an absent-minded move like this, I can even go here, and now you're going to really regret not castling. No, Wesley goes for a queen trade. Pawn up, tries to trade queens. Okay, takes. Wesley still up a pawn. Now Lenderman plays the move rook c1. Very good move. All right, taking the file. Willing to accept this and the opening of his own king, because black's king sucks and none of black's pieces can move. And suddenly Wesley starts firing away. g5. Oh. And he gets the king out like this. He kicks the window out. Now Lenderman here has to be aggressive with the move f4. He has to play this move. Okay? He doesn't. He comes back. And he finally wins his pawn back. So Wesley, no pun intended, took all these risks, hit his king on g7, and still lost his pawn. So now we start a phase of the game where probably only white is playing for a win. This pawn on a7 is delicate. That'll leave white with two passed pawns, and black's king is weak. How can black not be worse, right? Well, Lenderman starts trying to prove it. h4. Chop, chop. Bishop comes out. White's position looking dandy, okay? Wesley fighting back. Queen slides out to b7. Now rook e4. Now, the computer doesn't like this move because it doesn't like the way that you are dealing with this. The computer wanted you to go queen e4. And then if something like queen takes b2 in this position, there is knight takes f7. King f7 and queen e6 would arrive. But the way Lenderman does it, he kind of gets his pieces tied together. Now, he's not losing, but it's a little bit of an unpleasant position. And he's now going to make pawn moves like f3 and f4 trying to defend his knight. We get bishop e5, fe5, and now this knight is much better than this bishop. The bishop bites directly into its own pieces. Rook h8 is on the way, and the white rook still cannot move. Now we're getting low into time trouble. Okay, there might be blunders. Uh-oh. Rook is coming. Gonna hit everything on the 5th rank. Here comes the black queen as well. Oh, this is really dangerous now for Lenderman. Queen goes back to a8, defending the pawn. Queen h8. Oh my goodness, he's got the cannons rolling down the h-file. Check. Check. And on move 40, Alex Lenderman's campaign in this game comes to an end. This looks absolutely terrifying, and yet the best move for white was probably to move the rook. Because after check, king f2, and check, you play rook to g2. So you had to assist your king in the run by sliding your rook over. But this looks so dangerous. I mean, the king has no defense. The king is literally standing there like, where is everybody? What happened to y'all? Y'all get paid for these positions, man. So Wesley wins a very nice game. And Lenderman Alexander, unfortunately, goes down with the white pieces. Big win for Wesley. Next game I have for you is the game between Levan Aranyan. What was that? That is not how I normally say his name. Levan Aranyan. There you go. And Elshan Maradiabadi. Now, Elshan's had a rough event. He's been mixing it up in his openings, and this time he goes for a caro. Okay? Now, Elshan does not partake in the suggestions of one Levi Rosman. I always recommend the move c5 to people. This position of the Carl Khan scores like 54%, 53% for black, below the levels of like 2400. So, yeah, highly recommended. Bishop f5 is a move, of course, and white plays a very solid line. So Levon does not play the Tal variation. He does it this way, and just very solid. c3, looking for b4. This position has been reached before by black. g5, and now bishop to g7. Knight f1 tries to route the knight to the g3 square, hitting the bishop. And now black begins fighting back at the center with the move c5. Chop, chop. And now he trades queens. Very interesting. Basically, black is saying, yes, I have a weird structure and I'm lacking in development, but there's no way you're going to punish me because you don't have your queen. You don't have your most powerful attacking piece. Imagine Game of Thrones with no dragons, right? rook e3, bishop e7. Black just developing. Black is worse, sure. Is black losing? We're about to find out, all right? Now, here, Aronian does something fascinating. He trades a bishop for a knight, and there's not really an obvious reason why he does it, other than activity, right? He can't go here and try to win that pawn because knight c4 is arriving. It's a nice little combination to infiltrate the black position. So he forces black to take with a pawn, because if black had taken with the rook, it would have been the exact same thing. And this rook would have still been in its bed, so that wouldn't have worked. So he does this, gets in with his rook, but he takes the pawn on a7 and gives up the pawn on b2. He didn't have to do that. He could have played a6 and been a bit patient, but then, of course, black would have done this. But he does this, and instead of taking the pawn here, Elshan tries to trade the rook first. He's like, okay, now I'm going to take 2 pawns, right? I'm threatening 2 pawns. White obviously should not play the move before, because this, and then this. So bishop c3. And now, if you take on a5, I have rook a1, which just wins for white. So king f8, and takes. Aronian is just a pawn up. Not only is he a pawn up, he's about to go win a second pawn. c5 by Elshan. We have rook a1 and captures. And now white just has a passed a pawn. White brings his knight, defends his pawn, tries to jump in over here and win another pawn, and then plays rook d1, pinning this bishop, allowing the move bishop takes a5, but then rook a1 would come back and pin immediately. b3 removes the defender of the bishop, and both pawns are hanging. And now black is actually able to kind of deal with that very briefly. But Elshan just resigns here because after bishop e4, he would be down 1 pawn in an endgame where this pawn would make it to a7 soon. And he would probably lose both of these pawns as well. Now, there was still some game left to be played. It wasn't exactly over, but, you know, I feel a bit bad showing Elshan's games because it's like he's losing a lot in a row. He's in an obvious skid. He's in a slump. He's not doing well. But I try to show all the decisive games, and if a player is having a bad tournament, then, well, I gotta show the games. But yeah, I mean, it really seems like there is nothing Elshan can do. I mean, it seems like, actually, from the openings, he is getting pretty decent positions. And even in this game, he had like a relatively decent position from the early opening. But then White just applied pressure, clarified the position, and over the long run, it just seems like Elshan is being outplayed. There's not a whole lot he can do. But listen, you only lose in chess and in life if you don't learn something. So I'm sure he will go back to the drawing board, do a lot of review, and get better. Now, Wonder Liang versus Darius Schwiertz. This was a very long game. I am not going to bother you with its entirety. A Slav defense played by black. An exchange Slav, actually, which is one of the most boring openings in chess. But the way that this was played, with baiting the knight out this way, giving a check, forcing the bishop back, this is a line. And as you can see, the pawn structure is totally symmetrical, right? Like both sides have a d pawn and then an e pawn here. And then they have, just like typical kind of pressure here and so on. So nothing special, okay? But white is always a bit better. And especially once the trades start coming in like this, white is always better. Why is white better? Better structure, faster kind of targeting of black's weaknesses. Also, the bishop is better than any of those knights because the bishop controls so much space. And white is playing white. You get to go first, right? So like that actually is an advantage in and of itself. And a wonder in this game, well, he did a very nice job sort of emphasizing his advantage. Black's king is in the middle. Black's pawns are kind of dumbly placed on the b file. Dumbly is not a word. Is it a word? I don't know. You guys tell me. And white essentially just needs to prove that he has some sort of advantage. To his credit, Schwiertz actually does an excellent job in this game of consolidating and understanding the position better than his opponent. And now we have our rook and knight endgame, okay? White, in fact, sacrifices a pawn, okay, for activity. Now he wins the pawn back, rook f1, but it seems like even though Stockfish says this position is equal, visually, I can't get my head around that. Because this knight has almost no moves. H4 is about to kick it out over here. I'm going to go here in H4. Like, these pawns are just... I mean, you win one of them, you're going to win both, right? Like, they're just a liability. And Dariush spends like 30 moves in this game basically trying to prove that he's okay, right? And White just keeps applying pressure. And, you know, removing the defense of all the black pawns, right? Black's still playing super accurately to prove that he is doing all right. And White just continues to ask questions, pokes and prods. Oh, pawn's running away, knight h5. It's like, it barely feels like Dariush is hanging on. Look at this position. How is this equal? But it is, you know, his king is stuck on the edge of the board. Mate is being threatened. The rook has to go here. And we get a rook endgame where now a wonder has to play this for a win. And, well, what do you know? After 50, 60, 70 moves, we get into an endgame, which is a draw. So AC or FH, these two pawns split by the B pawn or the G pawn, right? AC or FH. This is a draw. There is a technique to draw this. Active king, rook in the corner. And what you do is exactly what Dariush does in this game, okay? He does not let the white king get out. Now, there is a way for white to, of course, activate the pawns and the king, and that is exactly what white is doing. But this is a draw. Rook in the opposite corner, king stands confidently in front of the pawns, and Dariush defends this position until the 100th move. He keeps defending, he keeps defending, he's defending, but he has like 10 seconds on the clock. And we gotta go to move 97, where instead of putting his rook here, he had to stay in the corner. He had to stay in the corner, he had to stay in the corner. Instead he comes here. Now the king makes a run for it. Now, the reason why the king could not make a run for it if, like, let's say here you had stayed in the corner and king d6, is because there are checks. But also you can take the pawn now. And after c6, you have side checks. That is the way you draw this game. You side check the king. So king c7, you side check, and if the king tries to run in here and go here, you come here. He doesn't do that, and now the back checks don't work anymore. By the time you take this, this is now a winning endgame with c6 because you don't have any side checks. And when you go back to the side checks, it's now too late. You let the pawn go too far. When the pawns get this far, it is a win for white. And a wonder wins after 105 moves of play. Top level chess is brutal, folks. It's just a brutal sport. It's a brutal game. I mean, this endgame is a draw. Like, A and C. It's crazy, but it's a draw. It depends on a few factors, but Schwiertz had those factors in this game. I mean, this game was just depressing. I feel like Schwiertz spent 5 hours trying to basically say, like, I'm good, trust me, I'm good. Nah, man, I'm good, and then he's not good, all right? But that does not compare to the drama of the game between Sam Sevian and Hans Niemann. Hans Niemann, all right, a couple of days ago was like, this is a good start. You know, I beat Elshan, and now I have a rest day, and now I'm playing Lenderman, Sevian, and a wonder to close out the tournament. So, you know, I'm going to try to make a comeback. Well, he's beaten Lenderman, and now he has to play Sevian, and now he has to play a wonder. But how is he going to beat Sevian with black? That's basically impossible. Yeah, and he plays a very forcing line. This has gotten super popular over the last year with this super long forcing sequence of moves. But normally white takes. Sevian plays a move, a3, which has been played 8 times. And it's not a bad move, actually. Computer kind of gives it the blessing. Now, in this position, there was a game over the board which went bishop b3. In this game, Niemann plays the best move, rook c8, and then plays bishop b3. And white tries to win the pawn back on e4. Black counterattacks the bishop here and plays this move f5. The best move here for white, g4. Sacrificing the second pawn, but these pawns are really ugly now, and the king is stuck in the center as white can still castle. Black plays f4, which is the top engine move. Now, Sevian has to play either bishop d2 or the best move, which is bishop a7, which just looks deranged. Why on earth would you lock away this bishop and potentially the bishop on f1? That's because apparently the best thing after f3 is to sacrifice the bishop. Is it with the bishop? Yes. This is actually one of the lines, because then you take on h5. Something like I mean, according to Stockfish on low depth, bishop a7 is the best move. He goes bishop d4 instead. Okay? f3. He might have stronger prep than I do, all right? But my stockfish was looking at this like, what? But he probably did some stronger prep. I don't know. Take h5. All right. Take g2, rook g1, knight f6, rook takes g2, and now bishop c5. These guys have played, I think, 19 moves of prep. I think. Because the position is 0, 0, 0. It's a completely insane position. Okay? We have rook d1. Wait. That's hanging. Did he... What? Well, that was the entire purpose of this. But now check. The bishop used to cover this. Now I take the bishop. Wait, so Savion just sacked a rook for a piece. He does attack a couple of things, and he also has rook g7. But black shuts the door. Wait a minute, but now bishop takes f6 check. And then I take this. Oh, but the bishop is guarding this, then this. What is happening in this game? Knight takes e4. Rook takes g4. Takes on g7 check. And now this. Okay, so black has 2 rooks, white has rook and bishop, and white has 5 pawns to 3. But white's pawns suck. Like, if white's pawn was on g3, actually white would have winning chances, because you would have a 3-on-1, which is really good, but white doesn't have that. So Hans is just going to spend this game kind of trying to, like, centralize his rooks, maybe push his pawn and kings up together, and just ask questions to the white position. It really helps that white's pawns are totally split. Like I said, this pawn was back on g3, it would not be this way. Savion is trying to trade the pawns down. So he's trying to like remove some of the pawns because the less pawns, the better, way higher drawing chances. And Niemann actually in the like late 30s gets a totally winning position. Of course, the computer always giving some absurd evaluations. It's like saying minus 1.7. He sort of pushes on here, runs his king to the b2 pawn. Both players have now made 40 moves. We get the extra time. And it's time for Hans to start sort of putting this altogether. He plays b4 because obviously this pawn is the closest one and the only one that's going to become a queen. King h4. And here Hans wins with rook a5. I'm not exactly sure why he didn't play that move, by the way. Like, maybe there was something he didn't like about rook h7 because he thought the h-pawn was a problem. But after rook f2, he's just totally winning. So, I don't know. This was after the time control. He decides not to take on a5. He goes rook g6. What? But that was just a free pawn. Why didn't he take it? Well, he wants rook h7, rook h6. And he's basically saying this endgame is winning for black. But it's not. It's not winning for black. Because now we have a crazy pawn race. And right here, something completely insane happened. I'm going to show you the clip now. Okay? The clip is one of the biggest oddities I have ever seen in chess, ever. And I've muted it. I'm going to give you the voiceover of what happened. It was so surreal. Basically what happened was, bro, you see that this is the same position. Now this is Savion over here. Okay, Savion's over here on the left side. This is Hans. Savion picks up the black king. It's not his move. It is Hans Niemann's move. And in the middle of the move, he picks up the king. And then he twirls it, and then he realizes that the crown of the king is broken. You see, the point of the king is in his other hand. What? What is happening? And Hans is like, what are you doing? Hans is like, what are you doing? And now we go to the other side of the camera. Look at this. Hans is like, what are you doing? It's my move. Put the king back. What are you? What? And Sam's like, Sam slides the king back to him. Sam doesn't even put the king back. Sam, like, tosses the king to b6. And Sam's like, what? What are you going to do about it? I was like, what are you doing? He's like, what? You want to go outside? And then they just keep talking. Sam's like, what? You want to take this outside? So when I saw this clip, it was so funny. Hans is like, I think he's trying to assault me. By the way, Sam is like a big dude. Look, Sam's like a big shoulders, man. Like, I would not want to step outside with Sam unless I was on his team. Anyway, long story short, what I think happened was, here's what I think happened. Players like to twiddle with pieces, okay? So like if there's a pawn, I don't know why I have a pawn, you go like this, right? You just sit there, you just twirl a piece. Okay, one of two things occurred. Sam either just absentmindedly, total brain fart, grabbed the piece that was already on the board, but that's not what I think happened. I think the crown of the king was loose. I don't think Sam broke the king. If he did, that's just some Chad behavior. Also, he probably owes the club like $50 because that king is super fancy. And I think he just had like a moment where, I don't know, he just like did. And so he was asking Hans not to fight outside. He wanted to go glue the piece back on, which just seems so crazy to do, like in the middle of a game. Like, no, just grab a king from the other board, just play it out. I don't know. So anyway, it was the strangest thing I have ever seen. You know, I don't know if it was a brain fart. I don't know. But like the cold-blooded look on Sevian's face, like, yeah, I just did that. What are you going to do about it? And people were like, they thought he broke it and like stared at Hans. No, that obviously didn't happen. But we still have a game to play. So after that extremely tense interaction between the players, where Hans lost like 20 seconds because his opponent literally took his piece off the board, the king has been restored and takes the pawn. So Hans wanted to move the king, but the king wasn't even on the board. So king b2, oh my goodness. And remember, Hans has basically said that this endgame is a win for black. We have rook g2, the white king still totally paralyzed, and in this position, the only move that draws for white is not h3, avoiding the pawn, not f7, trying to push, but the move rook h5. Rook h5 apparently holds. Here's the point. If this and this, white still queens. But if rook f2, which is the other idea, king g5. And if this, king g6, and if b2, which is trying to go here, rook b5. So you need to move your rook here so that it goes here after the king crosses the middle line. The king goes to help the pawn, the rook and the king switch, this rook comes here. Sevian misses that. And Sevian must have thought that he could do it this way, but this way is too slow. In this version, the white king doesn't get there in time, and black has this, and now black can sacrifice the rook and make the queen. And that is exactly what happens, and Hans spends the rest of this game running the king as, oh, by the way, sick move. Oh no, my rook for stalemate. He doesn't blunder that though. Now Hans runs his king, and of course the queen can't do anything without her king. It's a beautiful love story. The king gets as close as possible, but really this will come down to winning this pawn and not allowing white to promote. It takes 78 moves. The pawn has been won, and now black sends the a pawn to be another queen, and Sam Sevian resigns. Folks, Hans Niemann just won 3 games in a row, and he is back over 2,700. And he is also in 4th place. What? Yes, I am not joking. I am not exaggerating. That is the way today's recap is going to end. He's in a tie for 4th place. Look at these standings. Oh, sorry. Well, 4th is like a tie for 3rd, technically, because it's 1st, 2nd, and then a tie for 3rd. Yeah, Hans has 6.5 points. He's tied for 4th. It's a big tie. But if Hans wins tomorrow against a Wonder, he's going to get 2nd place in the US Championship, damn it. I mean, it depends how Ray Robson does. But maybe, you know, 2nd or 3rd place. It's crazy. Absolutely nuts. The race at the top is still identical, half a point separation. We'll see what happens in the last round. Hans Niemann involved in some more absurdities, but this time not his fault. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you tomorrow. Get out of here.